who was here last year and heard my gambling story about Las Vegas? Nobody will admit to it?
Well, I was here last year, but I don't.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, right before we get started, I'll tell this little story. I was flying to Kansas City to see my friends in the nursing homes first and then go see my family in Kansas. And it was a crappy flying day. I mean, there were ice storms up and down the East Coast, screwed up all the traffic. And I usually fly early in the morning, but for some reason I flew at 7 out of San Jose that night. And I make it to Las Vegas after waiting an hour in San Jose because the plane wasn't there. And we had a 2-hour layover at least in Las Vegas. And I'm going to myself, looks like I eat on a regular basis. I do. And I'm going, by the time I get to Kansas City, there won't be a thing open. I can tell it right now. What do I want? Chicken wings. So I go through the whole, Las Vegas has little satellite airports. I forget what they call them, and a little train goes back and forth to pick up your luggage. No chicken wings to be had where I was, the terminal. So I go to the main one, go through everything, the sports bars, nothing. No chicken wings. And how I said I kind of have a mind of my own. We're not having chicken wings, we're not having anything. It's like a Coke. And then wait it out. I was going back towards the train thing, and all of a sudden, I was just walking. My feet just kind of glued themselves to the ground. They stopped. And I go, this is sure weird. And then I look around and I say, Angels, what's going on? They go, oh, look around. And here were this bank of one-armed bandits going, Wheel of Fortune, over and over again. If you've been to Las Vegas, you've heard the chant. So I go, forget it. I'm not here to gamble. I'm here for chicken wings. There's no darn chicken wings or something like that. And I'm going back to the plane. So I take another couple steps, and it's like I could see something out of the corner of my eye, like a little mouse had run by or something. And it was over by these slot machines. And I go, forget it. I'm not here to gamble. I'm here for, I'm going back to the plane. And they go, really? Not even, one, you only spend $20 anyway. What's the big deal? I go, look, okay, argue if you want to. Oh, okay, I got that. So I go, but I wouldn't know which one to play. And they go, how about the middle one? And I go, never had a hint like that. And if I ask, I'll never get an answer. But, it just kind of came. So I go over to the middle one of the Wheel of Fortune deal and stick in $20. And I've learned if you're going to gamble, wager the most you can, because if you ever do win, you're going to kick yourself if it was for a piddly, 1 nickel thing. So I was spending big, 75 cents a shot. And I was down to about $4, and I'd maybe gotten $2 a win, then back down to $4. And I go, oh, I knew this was a mistake. I never should have even started, blah, blah, blah. And I go, wait, that is the bad kind of energy to put out here. I've got to do better than that. So I go, what would work? Oh, every spin is a new event in the universe. So I did it again, nothing. Every spin's a new event in the universe. And I was down to 2 something, and all of a sudden it starts ringing this bell. And I haven't really been paying attention anyway, what it meant, but it just keeps ringing and ringing, and a lady comes over pretty soon with she has her attendance uniform on. She goes, hun, looks like you're going to be happy about this. And I go, oh, really? And she pulls out a big print calculator. He goes, no, I'm wrong. You're going to be really happy. And I go, oh, yeah, why is that? And she holds it up, and it says 1127 on it. So $1,100 later, I'm still free of my chicken wings. Gave her a nice tip, and off I went to call everybody that I just won something in Las Vegas. The rest of the trip was a blast, and with my family, we could go out to lunch or dinner together at a restaurant. I go, let's let Las Vegas pay for this. And so it was a lot of fun. It ends up that I had $800 after I bought all these fancy dinners, and it rode around with me for 4 months in my hip pocket because I didn't know where it went. And then one day in training, these new digital projectors you plug into your computers, I decided I was going to have one. And I was going to have a decent one. It wouldn't break down on me. And it was like $749. And you go, where am I going to find the money for that? And my angels go, remember Las Vegas? And I go, oh, that's right. So my projector is what I actually won out of Las Vegas, and it's served me well and helped me reach more people all the time. So now I'll get started. Sounds good? Okay, lighting. How's my hair? My name is Ben Dreese. I'm from San Jose, California now, but I've lived coast to coast pretty much. And as I was sharing earlier, by the brave people that sat in the front rows, I work with the Inner Peace Movement, and it's helped me the most in my life. I started in '73. I'm not here to talk about that so much today, but if you want to know more about that, you can go down to the booth, which is 219 from what the people are reminding me about. What I'm here today to talk about is your discernment and what you can do to improve it maybe and why you might want to improve it. And I've got kind of three parts, and I was actually checking with some angels before I came up here. A few parts. What discernment is, how to evaluate where you are now, because it's always good to know where you stand today. You don't have to tell a soul, but it's helpful if you might know about that. How to practice calibrating your discernment, I would say, sharpening it, trusting it. Now, how many of you get a gut feeling from one time or another? Okay. When I started, I didn't know what a gut feeling was. It was a gut knot for me, but things got better. And then some next steps. So bear with me. I wanted to make sure I conveyed as much as I could if I use notes a little bit, but I'm also pretty good on my feet. In what I call spiritual work, raised in the Midwest and all this, to me, spiritual means matters of the spirit. It's not religious at all. It's our spirits. And whatever is truth for you as far as religion, I respect that. We're all on our own search for that. And that search is as meaningful as the destination, in my opinion. Because you meet with people that you really have affinity with. You work with things that are important to you. And the source of all religions is a better part of us. How we fit in the world, where we go next sometimes, and what we can do together while we're here. Now, I'm a believer that we're all connected in the universe. And I just heard this the other day. It's like a sparkling web. I kind of like that picture. But whatever you think of our connections, we have a lot going on that we don't see, sometimes hear, know, touch, or feel. Can you remember a time when people might describe moving pictures on a box in black and white and then in color? The television, there was a time when that didn't exist. And people would have denied it could, because that's where our state of consciousness was then, what we knew was achievable. If nowadays you say, well, if I look here on a monitor, the keyboard automatically knows which letter is up there and it'll do it for me. That's a leap of faith sometimes for some people. But if you are paralyzed, that's probably your best tool for communicating, because you've got the special setup that works with your iris and the computer to communicate, and you can even have an artificial voice represent you. The point to that is there's a lot we don't see, and because of that, we think it doesn't exist. But I would offer that maybe there's a lot that we don't see that's working on our behalf. And being able to discern that is so important. Now, there's a difference between sensitivity and discernment. Who knows somebody, or is somebody, that can tell when a storm's coming in? Because, the joints, the elbow, whatever it is, something's going on there. But do most people know that? No. You're kind of in the minority there. But is it real for you? Is it reliable? And could you win money if you bet somebody on it? Probably so. That's how trustworthy it is. Well, sensitivity is something where we are all equally sensitive in my book. We are experiencing this. We're kind of like radio transmitters and receivers. What makes it different is some of us don't know what channel we're listening to sometimes. And we don't know what we're broadcasting sometimes either. And if we knew that, maybe our lives would automatically improve a little bit, because we'd say, that's not my channel. You know, I'm not here to listen to that. I've got something else in mind. The part about discernment is when you can start to get an impression and say, this fits here or there, or that's not me, I'm not gonna get tangled up with it. You start to automatically, again, work with what you're about instead of what something else is about. Now, in the little article, I think it talked about something about grandparents helping out grandkids. If you're a grandparent, is it not almost natural for you to kind of scheme a little bit with your grandkids and say, well, you know, I want to take them to Dairy Queen or something. But I'm not going to say, let's go to Dairy Queen. I'm going to say, let's go for a walk around the block, or let's hop in the car and see what we can find. You kind of make the trip longer so you can fellowship with them longer, kind of get to know where they're at, get them to talk to you in a safe environment. But the real agenda is to have a good time with them and hit the Dairy Queen. That's my favorite. That's why I used it. And do something constructive, positive, or memorable. Now, how about, as you grow up, you can see what's going on. Like, not too long ago, I worked with, actually as a CEO, but I saw something at work that needed to turn into a book. I'd done books like that before, but I worked with somebody who was only 3 years with our company, just came from the phone centers, and he was in a technical trade suddenly with no information and no training, and he and I built a book together, and it was very well received. And as kind of the crescendo to all that, well, first I said, okay, his name's Oz. Oz, I know how to build books, but I know what you need to know, so you're going to do the work on it. You're going to take the pictures, because it's a big picture book. You're going to put it into a format. You're going to have all these things. I'll be with you every step of the way. I'll give you the camera. We'll drive to where we need to go, and I'll get it reviewed, and I'll have it pass legal review. And when you're done, you'll know what you're talking about. You'll have something to pass on to others. And when you go to your next job interview and they say, so what have you done for us lately? You can hand them this fine 90-page product. Deal? Sure. Win-win. With our lives, I think a lot of times we have the same thing going on. You might want to build a new house, or buy a farm or sell a farm. You might want to get a community program going of some kind. Whatever it might be, those are kind of like big items. Probably already you're not going to do it by yourself. You need people around you. And you need for things to come together, whether it be a cause or a community need. And as soon as you have that in your mind, this sparkling web of the universe that I talked about earlier kind of gets energized with that kind of thought pattern going. And because we're all connected and we broadcast what's on our mind and how we feel, the message goes out, is the way I say it. By what seems to be happenstance sometimes, things start to kind of fall into place. Somebody knows somebody who pushes them towards you. Or you read something. You never even read that kind of magazine, but there's a piece of the puzzle there. Can you imagine, with your angels kind of looking at the bigger picture, how much they can guide you towards what's important to you? Might be quite a bit. It might be also to have times when, slow down. The train's coming to town, but if you show up at the depot 2 hours ahead of time, it's going to look like there's nothing on the tracks, but it's coming. When I was in Oregon, one of the things we did all the time was dig clams on the shores. Well, let me tell you what, when the tide goes out, you can dig clams like crazy. And I think the limit's 2 buckets right now. But when the tide comes in, it doesn't matter whether your buckets are full or not. The tide's coming back, and you better get back to what is really the shore, because the universe kind of has a bigger say in the matter, and you're going to be wading and then swimming after that. The seasons of our lives and the events, even in our society, have these waves too. If you're sensitive and discerning to that, things can be a lot harder or a lot easier. So discernment's a big deal, and it's different than sensitivity. Everybody can pick it up, but on the radio dial, are you listening to 1250 or 1171? What kind of channel would you want? Something that enriches your life, something that's important to you. How many of you, let's say, feel like you have a plan or a path in your life of some kind? Okay, and maybe fewer. How many of you know what it is? Okay, how many hope there's one? That's more like me for a long time. Well, whether or not you're aware of it, your angels are working with that plan anyway. You didn't show up on planet Earth and get assigned a plan. Okay, 237, your plan is, no, that's part of you and your angel's contract when you started, before you came here. They've got it even if you can't remember it. And with all the things that we get growing up, like I was telling earlier how I was the shyest guy on the planet at one time. My parents, in their own best interest for me, told me not to talk to strangers. And I was a friendly kid. And they really had to repeat that over and over again. So by the time I was out of nursery school, I barely talked to anybody walking to school or back home. And then I figured, boy, there's more strangers than that. So I barely talked to anybody for years. And then I was kind of, had a lot to say by the time it finally got let loose. But I kind of untied that knot and kind of set myself free there. So now I'm standing up here talking to people that are strangers to me, most of you. Not, and it's fun, actually. So we have sensitivity and we have discernment. And I talked about timing a little bit too. Now, I want you to, I'm going to read a couple questions here, and you please don't blurt out your answers because they might be embarrassing or not. But think about this on your discernment and see if any of these resonate with you. Have you ever talked yourself out of something that actually would have been good for you? Uh-huhs are okay. If you find yourself that you're either ahead of timing or behind your timing. Behind your timing is the jet took off without you. Ahead of your timing is you showed up and the jet hadn't appeared. Or maybe a more common example is you're used to driving down the street, and if your timing's good, more or less the green lights are with you most of the time. And then you notice when they all start red, it says, what's wrong here? I'm used to having some green lights, and I seem to catch every darn one of them that are red. That's your timing. And on that note, if you're here to work with people or you're helping people, it's not just about us individually. We help others too. How much timing does it take for two people to come together and meet sometimes? Like, I have kicked myself for missing a flight because this was way back when they had teletypes and stuff. I was flying out of Puerto Rico and it said 1 p.m. departure. Well, if you look closer at the ticket, it really said 11 a.m. departure. But the type was so faint, just a trace of it. So I ended up missing my plane, paying a little more to fly back to the U.S. But sitting next to me on the plane was somebody, we talked from San Juan, Puerto Rico to Atlanta, nonstop. And the stewardess goes, "Are you two brothers or something?" And I was, no, I never met this guy before. But there was so much going on between us that was cool to talk about. Things that we saw in our lives with our parents and everything else. There was just a huge interchange there. It was a rich experience. I'm glad I paid the money because it made an imprint on my life, and actually I got some answers I was looking for. So that's timing. Are you the type that impatiently leave before good things happen? I used to be that way, and then I learned if I lingered or showed up to help a little, it was really a lot more fun. It was totally different. Like, I used to do a lot of retreats, and I was, a lot of them were like 8 a.m. Saturday morning to 6 p.m. Sunday night, and then hop on the plane and fly back to where I was. Well, I caught wind that maybe, that was wearing me out because it was like breakneck speed. I took a day off to fly back Monday night. And the people that were running the retreat, I got to kind of talk with them afterwards instead of being in a structured class. What a difference that made. And I learned a lot about energy then too, because when we assemble like this, we're building energy just by being here. And if we are of like mind, even more, we're building energy. And when we leave, it's going to, whatever we built here, it's all going to affect us a little bit, hopefully for the better. And we'll move out, but some of that's still going to still be in the room. Well, if you're in the retreat settings, during the intense times, energy really builds, and then when it dissipates at the end, it's really kind of cool to kind of be in an afterglow almost. So this run in, run out, from my experience, doesn't always work. Do you feel like you're always behind or always catching up on something? Is anybody here like me? Yeah. Are you in the same spot, would you say, to yourself as you were a year ago? Has a lot changed that you were looking forward to, or is it pretty much in a holding pattern? Something to think about. You're really busy, but you're feeling left out. Are you dependent on praise from others instead of satisfaction? That deals with the inner and outer. If it takes being recognized up front, nothing wrong with that. But if you have to have it, instead of, I feel good about what I just did. Nobody else does. I don't care, I did. It was remarkable. Are you easily overruled or talked out of what you enjoy or feels right? Now, if I was a betting man, I'd say if you wanted to go on vacation, nobody could talk you out of that, because that's kind of an adventure all by itself. But if it's the more regular things in life, those are subtle hints. Those are subtle feelings of what might really be good for you or be one of those puzzle pieces for your bigger picture. So be sensitive to that. I know some people that are real fighters. They're like bulldogs for their own rights. In fact, I know somebody who says, nobody can tell me anything. And their angels are going, boy, is she telling the truth, It's not one gender or the other. It's like, won't listen. It has to come, some people, and probably because they were imposed upon when they were little, they really rankle up when somebody's telling them what to do, barking orders and all that. That's fine if you're trying to, keep your energy from being thwarted or sidetracked. But on the other hand, how are you going to get some good outside information if you got this shield around you all the time? It is tough. I can testify. So there's a place for both. And the antidote to me is to know your own voice a little better, know what you want. It's like the mama cat, if it's time to go to the mat for something, you got a big fight on your hands. But if it's not a big deal, don't be ready to whip out the dagger and go, okay, you're on, I'm smarter than you, and I'm faster too, so just take that. We don't need that. And you don't need that kind of drama in your life most of the time. But you also need to be respected enough to where if you're going to be pushed around, be prepared to see the dagger, It's there, but you don't need to whip it out so often. Don't advertise too much. Let's see, easily overruled. As you go with the flow, is your life becoming more fun? Has anybody experienced, I just relaxed a little bit and suddenly my year got better? Or I got one break in my life and things just, I got it. Now I know what to do. That's what I love doing, is helping people with that little piece. And I was at 7-Eleven not long ago, and there was a lady there who looked like a mom of 6 kids, kind of frazzled, and she was buying milk for the family, it looked like. And she was going through her overstuffed purse, making sure she had enough quarters and nickels. And I go, God, I feel like helping her. And the first impression I got is don't injure her pride. Okay, I got that. I respect that, and I've been there too. So I go, so what do I do? Well, let's see. I could throw $20 on the ground and walk over and pick it up. Oh, did this fall out of your purse? Nah. I don't believe that. But I go, and I could have talked myself out of this so easy, but I go, no, I feel like helping. I don't know why, and I don't really care. That's what I feel. So I go up to the clerk, and it's the same 7-Eleven I go to buy my lotto tickets. So I'm a pretty regular customer there, and I trust them too. And I go, hey. And he goes, what? Is it a robbery? No. So, see that lady over there getting the milk? I want to pay for her milk, and you give her the rest of the change. And I gave him $20, and then I took off. And, I released it. I don't know what happened after that. It could play out a million ways, but I think I know how it played out. This pay it forward thing, you see some people at grocery stores will pay for the person behind them sometimes where I go, and they feel good on the inside, but they don't get a gold pen or anything else. But that's how a little break like that can tell somebody who needs it, somebody's looking out for them. That's all. We got to look out for ourselves mostly and do our part, but others. Okay, custom of things working out for you. Kind of covered that. Thinking about here's a biggie, big hint. Thinking about the present, most of the time planning for the future or dwelling in the past. Now, I got to tell you, if you are dwelling in the past more than a couple years, a significant amount of time, the energy that you're putting there, that's your choice. That's great. But it's energy that is kind of being dissipated rather than putting it into your future a little more. If you got plans for yourself, you're running that show. And if you're in the past, you're watching a movie. Movies always turn out the same once they're edited. And if you want to have change in your life, you've got to put more energy forward a little bit, just so things can happen. And sometimes that just means putting yourself out there, which goes to, when's the last time you got to know somebody new in your life? Was it a month, a year, high school reunion, whatever it is, and it's not to judge again, but this is a kind of a telling thing. If you're meeting new people, you're invigorating your life. You're never going to find anybody as interesting as you, but you will find a lot of neat stories of places you're never going to be able to go in your lifetime. There just aren't enough days. I'm a big believer that we're all equal in the fact that we have the same 24 hours. What we do with that's up to us. So, worth looking at. Let's see. What can discernment do for you when it gets better? I was looking for something yesterday in Easton, just north of here, and I was relying upon a GPS to get there. Well, the GPS was totally oblivious to real conditions like detours, buildings that don't have building numbers on them, divided highways that are like the express route and the local route. And when you're in a new town and it's dark anyway, if you're like me, you come to trust something that's going to talk to you, so it's a GPS. But when I was trying to get just to an Office Max, I ended up at this enormous shopping center. It looks like a little town all by itself in Easton. I forget the name of the main street. I want to say McCrutcheon or something like that. But anyway, whatever it was, I come to the first intersection where the GPS had me, which was the corner of this 10 blocks of stores. And I go, darn, I'm not driving through all these little parking lots to find out where I'm going. What does my sensitivity say, and what do I discern about that? Well, my discernment said, keep on driving. And wouldn't you know it, at the very end of that street where it tees off is where the Office Depot was. And I was kind of proud of myself, actually. I go, yeah, that's pretty good. We have, our intellect wants to tell us what to do all the time, right? And it might go, is this fair? Do you have all the facts? And in fact, if this is kind of the intellect and the feeling part, just for a picture. The intellect, its job really is to do what the feelings say, let's do this. Like, let's go to Crater Lake. That's in Oregon, that's a fact. Okay, how do we get to Oregon? The intellect organizes it. And the feeling part goes, this is going to be fun. I can't wait. I got the vacation time, and now I've got friends to go with me. I invited a few people, and you have a great time. And it enriches your heart more than anything else. And you take a few digital pictures if you're like me, too. But we have been trained to over-rely upon our head to make the decisions in our life. The head protects us from bad things, stupid things, and unlikely things. But it's not got really shouldn't have the control of the steering wheel. Our feelings can take us there too. So one of the things that your discernment can be improved in is just having a balance in your thought and feeling part. I like to say, thought for every feeling, a feeling for every thought. Now, like I said earlier too, when I was talking, growing up, I did not know what my feelings were. In the 60s, they said, oh, what's the vibe? I had no idea what they were talking at all. It's just those hippies talking out there, that was about it. Couldn't figure it out. And I started to understand what my feelings were, and then when I first became aware of that, a little problem came with it. It's that I had a big knot right here in my stomach. I had grown up with a knot that I couldn't even feel for years, and then one day it was gone. And that was like the door really opened for me. And I became acquainted with what everybody else was talking about as, oh, I feel like doing this, or I feel like this. Instead, I had let the intellect take over, and there was a gauntlet of 30 questions that had to be answered before I could do anything. And if you've had that, it's a horrible thing to be guided by. And I knew I'd really passed a new milestone. Last year, I was cruising eBay looking at something for Christmas, and I saw something that to me was totally beautiful. And this advisor said, oh, that's not practical. It'll probably break by the time it gets shipped. On and on and on. I go, I don't care. I'm buying it. And it wasn't broken after all, and it enriched my life, and it brings me joy. So there, there, intellect, thanks for trying to protect me, but I wanted what I wanted, I'm going to go do it. What are we doing for time here? 1 o'clock. I don't want to run over, okay. So let's see, we talked about the GPS, paying it forward. Let's see. Oh! How many of you can say you hear your own drummer? Is that a fit for you? Okay. That's part of your sensitivity and discernment already at work. Go on your own. Sometimes the doors may not open for you that you think ought to open. But that doesn't mean you're not on your path at all. It means for you, that may not be the door that's open or set aside for you. I had a chance to go to China one time. I didn't know about it. And concurrently, about that same month, I was thinking, oh, I got to go talk to Herb. See, I want him to know what my dream is here. I got to get my passport ready too. Well, I got my passport. I didn't talk to Herb. After I got my passport, I run up to him and I said, if you ever hear of anybody that's looking for somebody to go to China for a year or so, I'd be really interested. He goes, Ben, they were just looking for somebody last week, but I didn't know anybody wanted to go. I go, wish I had a big boot or a big gun, and I go, well, I'm glad my sensitivity was telling me what there was, but I wasn't discerning the timing very well. I would have had a blast to go. And I had everything ready, but my timing, I didn't follow through on one element. So the point to that is that I could sense that door was there, but I wasn't pushing the right way. And in fact, when I went on the internet to look up opportunity one time, quotes about opportunity, the one I like the most is the door to opportunity says push. And to me, that means I've got to do my part first. I've got to get there to the right door. Now, I work in a big company, 21,000 people. There's lots of doors that are open, or that would open, but not all of them are for me. I went interviewing for jobs. It took me 23 interviews before I got placed on a job I was looking for. And back with the people I was working with, the good news is I already had a job. It's just a different department. But every time I come back, they go, Ben, they don't know who they're missing. You know, they should have given you an offer. And I go, I know that, but you know what? I'm better at interviewing now than I was last week. And pretty soon I was running the interviews, and then sometimes people would look forward to the interview. Oh, it's, you know, I wonder what Ben will show us this time, you know, that kind of deal. 23 interviews, and instead of that being something that beat me down every time, I'm getting better at this, you know. No butterflies, no worries, just make sure I get there in time, and, you know, how's my hair, that kind of stuff. And thank God I didn't get any of those other jobs. I would have hated it. And the etiquette is that if you take a job, usually at least stick around for a year, you know, because otherwise you're kind of like unreliable. You take a job and then you don't even stay. So I was spared 22 bad jobs. This is the way I see it now, and I got to the right one. Now, I know that if you're under pressure, that is a luxury. You know, when I do training for putting together your resume, sometimes we have big layoffs, and I'm one of the trainers. And people who've never had, you know, many jobs, they come in and they go, look, I'm not here for the resume training. Just give me the list of where all the jobs are. I can handle the rest on my own. And I go, well, that's not really how it works now, you know. And by the third meeting, we have like 20% of the people we started with, because they don't want to go through the steps. But I say, look, in this class, I'm not going to be reading from a book. I've been laid off 6 times. I've been on unemployment 3. So what you're going to hear about is the real world, not, you know, that it's supposed to work like this world. And what happens is the people who really get serious about this do well. And in our lives, with the discernment just getting a little better, I expect that things will be doing well for you too. If you had $100,000 to invest in a little business, would you put it into something where people are, you know, showing up early every day and staying maybe late? You know, small business owners, we are, to make sure everything gets done and you're polite to the customers? Or would you give your money to somebody who's kind of indifferent? They showed up, made sure they got paid on time, and answered the phone when they had to. Probably if you were an investor, you'd go with the people who are putting out. Well, in my view of the world, the universe is like that too. It is really important to know 2 things: where you want to go and why you want to go there. A good example that I always use is, like, to me, the universe is like a gentle breeze blowing across the ocean, and you are the sailboat. Well, I can guarantee you that if you don't have, you know, in the water part, there's what they call a rudder, and I call it a dagger board. It's probably called something different if you're into sailing, but that deep keel that goes down there. Those 2 elements have to be working for you to be able to navigate up above the water. If you don't have those, it's like a sheet of plywood with a sail on it, and wherever the wind is blowing, that's where the plywood's going next. That keel for you, that stability, is what you want to do. And the why is just as important, because that's your feeling part saying, this is why it's important to me. In leadership, whether it be of yourself, your family, or a company you work at, the leaders that say why we're going to go there are the ones that get followed and admired and respected. And the leaders that say, because I told you to do that, aren't the ones that get admired, respected, or followed very long. They usually get replaced or sidetracked, you know, sidelined. You don't lose your job, but you don't get to do much that's fun either. So, you know, where do we want to grow? I'm also a big believer that if you're helping others along the way, the chances of you having success increase exponentially. It is all about us as far as us being responsible for our own energy, but we're also through no extra effort at all, we can encourage, build confidence in people around us, give them bite-sized opportunities that are successes instead of overwhelming ones that are a struggle. If you've raised kids, you know what that's like. I had a neighbor kid, his dad worked 2 jobs, and he'd come over to the house and change the oil in the car. I foolishly thought that just by showing him, it would work. Well, he had these little headphone things plugged in his ears and his iPod turned on, and he watched me, just like I thought he would, but he wasn't paying attention. Pretty soon it was, Carl, you get under the car, you open the drain plug. And after about 3 times he was barking, hey, give me the 3/4 wrench, and blah, blah, blah. Where's the newspapers? I need a rag, He was engaged with his life all of a sudden. And he's over in Japan right now, and he can change the oil the rest of his life. He's not dependent upon anybody. We have a stellar opportunity. If you're sitting here today, part of you loves people, is on a search of some kind, you realize you've got stuff to pass on, and maybe you're looking for more ways just to do that. Whatever it is that brings you here, the keys are, how can you pass on what you already know, what you've mastered? Now, if you say a son, a daughter, a grandkid, or a neighbor kid that wants to know what you have to offer, how rewarding is that for you when you can get to pass it on? Is it horrible, or is it kind of neat? For me, that feeds my soul, and it helps somebody else find their way too. So I'm going to start on the wrap-up mode now. I think we've done quite a bit of evaluation. Let's see. Maybe a couple things. We talked about big ideas need baby steps. Start to notice that you're not alone, that when you do something, there's always something that helps you. Do things to keep you and your feelings. That's a biggie. For me, it's going fishing sometimes. I'm out there throwing the spinner in the water, not expecting anything, but I'm out by myself, able to think my own thoughts at my own pace, and that's very grounding to me. Some people go to movies, some help others, or they're very engaged with their church, whatever it is. My next thing, I think, my angels keep sharing this, is youth at risk. There's a large amount of people who just happen to have younger bodies, but they've kind of been disenfranchised by their circumstance. And to see them light up, I've actually worked with a couple that, it helped them at a time they needed it. And I was talking about timing before, the time you need help is when it's important, not when somebody else is convenient for them. And standing in line to get help doesn't agree with me very much. It never worked for me anyway. But, if you can find something like that feeds you and helps somebody when they need it, that's a biggie. Real big. Write down and release a personal list of how you're holding yourself back. Now, I know nobody here would hold themselves back, but you might know friends that would benefit from this. Because if you've ever done arm wrestling with yourself, you can get worn out really fast. Why not let go of that and see if there's another way to look at things? Feed your soul. Remember what it feels like to go down the street when all the lights turn green. And by the end of this weekend, here's my ask of you. Get a 3x5 card. Write down what you're going to be doing the next day before you go to bed. And it might not, for me, on a Sunday or Saturday, it looks like go to the post office, get a haircut, buy the groceries, nothing big deal. Movie, wash car. Couple things that really feed me and other things that just keep me out of trouble. But if you engage in that kind of setting your energy every evening, after a little bit, it becomes easier to get up in the morning too, because you know where you're headed and you know why you're getting the why. why you're getting up a lot of times. And if you do this for about 3 weeks, you'll be amazed at how a lot of the distractions of life have gone aside, and maybe some of those last minute events aren't happening quite as frequently anymore because you saw them coming. Who likes to see things coming, or who likes to get blindsided? You know, those are the choices. I know the best way to get out of a department is to blindside my boss. You know, once I'm on the radar and twice I am somewhere else. Not that I practice that, but I know that's how it would play out. And I would kind of feel that way too. And can you imagine what your angels would be able to pull off if they actually knew where you were going to be the next day, what your plan really was? I know a lot of people that are able to get up in the morning and they have a full day no matter what. Nothing wrong with that. But at the end of the day, can they say, I got done what I needed to do, or I'm actually getting towards what I want to be? I believe in having one or two big goals in my life at a time. When I'm talking to youth anymore, I say you don't need to know what you're going to do the rest of your life. You just need to know what you're going to do next. In careers, who can tell what you're going to do 10 years from now? But what would you want to do next? That's all. Kind of narrows the focus. It's a lot overwhelming. Boy, I was so tired of my relatives saying, well, what are you going to be when you grow up? And I don't know, it didn't sound like the best answer. So I avoided the question as much as possible, or deflected it right away. And they were just trying to help me, if they could. So, you know, maybe the question's too big sometimes, so narrow down your own question, but just know what you're going to do the next day. And if you're really into things happening that are big, dare to fill a one tablet page of what you'd like to be by the end of a year's time. Where you want to travel to, what you want to be free of, what you want to build for yourself. And stick it in a place that you'll discover about a year from now. It will be amazing to you what was done, and you didn't even really think about it getting done. It takes on a life of its own if you're able to put an ink pen on a piece of paper and write it out. Automatically, your state of consciousness starts to use that sparkling web of the universe to pull things together, and automatically you start to make choices that draw you towards where you want to be next. Any questions or comments, I guess, is a next step here. Yeah?
What's your day job?
My day job now is I'm a trainer. I write training. I investigate fatalities and, you know, big fires, that kind of thing, for a utility company. I do it with authority because I used to climb the poles and work on the electric lines and hook them up and, you know, go out during storms and do that kind of thing. And I never thought I would fit in a utility company, but it turns out I'm exactly what they need. And, you know, a friend of mine who eventually became a VP, he goes, the thing about you, Ben, is you think out of the box. And I go, what box? Yeah. And we can have a what box kind of life. And like I said, you know, big companies have a lot of roles. And I was there because it fed my passion. It turns out that, you know, it's been good for me too, as far as my life goes. But I was there because I wanted to be climbing poles. I wanted to be working with my hands. And then I wanted to be training because I can see what people don't understand and I can help them get there in a way they like, not just instruct. So that's what my day job is. And remember, I was quiet as a mouse growing up. Anybody else? Well, there's a couple things. If you're into sensitivity and discernment, I've got some coupons down at the IPM booth, 219 it says right here. We have the moderately priced impressions for sure, $5 a piece for 3 minutes. But with the special coupon, you get 2 for the price of 1. So you can bring a friend or get 2 readings. I give these out. I want to thank you for your time. I hope that I've given you something, or, you know, given you something you can pass on to somebody else when they need to hear it, about how you can make your life a little better, how you can do it without the drama so much, and more with the joy. So thank you for your time.